Collateral is a film about the thin line between coincidence, fate, and choice. The movie centers on the relationship between two characters, Max, a taxi driver played by Jamie Foxx, and Vincent, a hitman played by Tom Cruise. At the beginning of the film, we learn more about Max's character in 30 seconds of great acting and cinematography than we could have learned with 30 minutes of exposition. Max cleans the dashboard of his taxi, telling the audience that he is careful and meticulous. We've all been in a gross car before, maybe even our own, and nobody wants that. Max also glances at a picture of a beach from time to time. This tells us that he has goals, a dream. He wants to be better. Throw in a second language that Max speaks casually, and a general sense of competence at his job, and this seems like a person who is way overqualified to be a taxi driver. It's fitting that as Max begins his shift in what will surely be the worst day of his life, we see a huge mural of something, a headless horseman being chased. Much like the subject of the painting, despite what Max may tell himself, he is symbolically headless at the start of the film. No direction, being herded by his past and his inability to escape circumstance. Later in the film, this headless horseman style of life will be what Vincent urges Max to step out of. Soon enough, fate puts Vincent in the back of Max's cab. Vincent tells a story about why he hates Los Angeles. You can see the disgust on his face as he tells it. He read about a guy who died on the subway, and nobody noticed him for 6 hours. For Vincent, LA symbolizes what he despises about modern life. There is no connection, no community, too much sprawl, too many self-centered people. Vincent hires a hesitant Max to become his driver for a series of 5 hits throughout the night. He sweetens the deal with a bunch of money, but Max is uncertain for the same headless reasons that he always is. Max uses the word temporary a lot to describe his situation. He's just saving up money, biding his time, waiting for everything to be quote-unquote perfect before he starts his own company and lives out his dream. As Vincent points out, 12 years is a lot of time to be temporary, waiting around. Max is following rules and regulations for a company that doesn't give him any benefits and barely pays him anything. As someone who has said he hates what LA, and by extension modern life in America, has become, Vincent sees right through this. Through the life of menial jobs, obligations, struggling to get by, waiting on a dream that will almost certainly never come. What's interesting here is that this encounter that is going to end up changing both men's lives is itself some mix of coincidence, fate, and choice. If Max didn't make the bet about traffic with Annie, he wouldn't have got there at the right time to pick up Vincent. Vincent himself almost chooses to get in another cab. Max almost misses him, but then rolls the window down to tell him to get in. Near misses, perfect timing, little choices that don't seem important at the time. Collateral is filled with moments of coincidence, whether it's Vincent getting in the cab, the cops getting called away moments before finding the body in the trunk, a weird little moment of coincidence with 3 elevators in front of our main characters. In this case, the door that opens is not the one they expected. Why is it that some doors open while others don't? Detective Fanning shows up on that very elevator. Another near miss, and in Fanning's case, a fatal one.
If I do this, I'm just going to end up getting other people killed.
Out of options, Max. Just take comfort knowing you never had a choice.
Another theme here that Vincent points out is the lack of connection and community in our modern lives. At one point, a poor cabbie is in need, finding himself tied to a steering wheel. As he honks and yells for help, most of the sprawl just ignores him and walks by. The ones that do notice end up robbing him. This seems to annoy Vincent quite a bit.
That my briefcase?
Your briefcase?
In some ways,
you got for me?
as Max will point out to him later, Vincent is a hypocrite. Aside from using Max in a way that will pin the murders on him, by the end of the night, Vincent has been opining on the lack of community in society, while making it his job to kill innocent people, destroying families and communities in the process of doing that. Vincent counters that people die all the time. Why do we care about some lives more than others? The philosopher Peter Singer once came up with a thought experiment, trying to get at this idea of what we owe other people who are in danger. Imagine you're walking by a pool on your way to work, and you notice a child drowning. Would you jump in the pool and save the child? Most people, of course, say they would. But Singer then asks, well, why don't you do the same for other people all over the world, when in fact it would actually be easier to save those lives? A small donation made with the click of a button is certainly less collateral damage than ruining an expensive suit. Vincent's worldview seems to get at this idea. After telling a dramatic and heart-rending story about his abusive father, that turns out to be a lie, Vincent has another interesting exchange with Max.
I'm kidding. He died of liver disease.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
Vincent is questioning some of the foundational assumptions of ethical society, not to mention agency and what that really means.
You killed him.
No, I shot him. Bullets in the fall killed him.
It's Vincent's belief that we project our flaws onto everyone around us. This leads to the hypocrisy he was describing, and there's no reason not to apply this hypocrisy to our own personal lives. In Max's case, it's his pursuit of the American dream, making choices and doing what he ultimately wants to do, and just how hard that is to actually do in reality. Max toils away for 12 years, still too scared to avoid getting railroaded by his boss or call up a woman that he's interested in. Vincent says that most people in 10 years will just be doing the same thing they're doing right now. And yet we can't really know where we will be in 10 minutes. Instead of leaning into the improvisation and jazz of life, we get bogged down in routines and jobs. Not to mention all the other obstacles that prevent us from connecting and realizing our potential. Instead of realizing that potential, again, we have this idea of projecting feelings out into the world that we don't really feel. Whether it's in relation to morality and ethics, are you really moved about Rwanda or the guy falling onto the cab or Vincent's dad or the latest terror attack or insert tragedy here? Or is it only a problem when it inconveniences you or affects you personally? Or maybe those projections apply when it's in relation to making up narratives to excuse our personal decisions. Vincent would say we project our feelings into the world, whether we believe them or not. You might notice that Vincent spends a lot of time in this movie lecturing Max, but is Vincent himself really happy or fulfilling any sort of potential? Or is he just projecting onto Max his flaws like he mentioned before? How about me recording this right now? Is this a lesson I've learned and internalized, or just something I'd like to think that I've learned?
How long you been doing?
Fittingly, Max applies this idea of reversals onto Vincent.
Private sector, 6 years.
Okay, all right, 6 years. You get benefits, or like insurance, pension.
No paid sick leave. Quit stalling. Get out of the cab.
Turns out Vincent doesn't get benefits either, and maybe he's in the same position as Max. hostage to a job and a life that he never really chose, but somehow finds himself in, much like Max's whole situation throughout the movie. In some sense, our real lives are the collateral to what could have been. All of this leads up to Vincent seeming to make some sort of connection with a coyote or stray dog crossing the street. Another coincidence, by the way, the coyote crossing the road at that exact time. The stray dog theme connects with Vincent. Loneliness, alienation from society, lack of community, desire to be free of what he would call the sprawl. It is these little moments of self-reflection that make Vincent more than your standard psychopath movie villain. Although based on his lack of emotion and empathy, many have convincingly argued that Vincent should be considered a psychopath. Anyway, we get one of the great music montage scenes with Audioslave's Shadow on the Sun playing as they ride through Los Angeles at night. Michael Mann's directing and cinematography here really capture a vibe, and this world throughout the movie feels lived in and organic. In their final lengthy conversation of the film, Vincent says that we are all just a cosmic coincidence, a speck of dust in an infinite universe. Who notices? Nobody.
That girl, you can't even call that girl. What the fuck are you still doing driving a cab?
Again, Vincent laments the lack of connection and community and really meaning in modern society. Vincent's troubled yapping does inspire Max to come to a realization, however. If this is all insignificant in the long run, then why not do it? Max's shift in thinking, thanks to Vincent, is symbolically demonstrated by him taking the reins of coincidence and crashing his car. Max finally makes the call to Annie, not under the circumstances he would have wanted, but his life and his outlook are now changed. At the end of the movie, Max finally stops Vincent. The chaotic shootout on the train ends with Max's chaotic and coincidental spray defeating Vincent's signature orderly shots. Vincent fittingly dies on a train alone, in the same way he was so disgusted by earlier in the film. The question, now asked 3 separate times by the movie, is, will anyone notice?